Hi, I'm Heather from Here Booktubes, and today is a paranormal romance try chapter challenge because Love in the Night is happening very soon for me, currently for you if you're watching this when this is posted. And I had done my Love in the Night TBR really early this time because I only had a handful of paranormal romances on my TBR. I was a lot heavier on the sci-fi romances, and I was going through those and I was saving the paranormal for Love in the Night, right? Well, on a random Tuesday in March, it was the 18th to be specific, I had just read one of my 9 possibilities for Love in the Night, and I was panicked because I didn't have anything to replace it with. I was like, this will simply not do. For another week-long readathon, I might not need more than 9 possibilities. In fact, I might need less than that. But for Love in the Night, I know how many I get through and I know how many I DNF, and I want to have options. Paranormal romance is just one of my favorite things. So on that Tuesday, I added approximately 16 books to my TBR. They were all paranormal romances and they were all from Goodreads and stuff. One is for a future video project and is not a possibility for Love in the Night or this try chapter. And so that leaves 15. Of the 15, one is a library hold that has not come in yet. It's a sapphic urban fantasy. And the rest are fair game. There are 2 by the same author by accident, so I will try one and make a decision on both. I didn't realize I had 2 by the same author. And then one also, another sapphic one, I had put on hold at the library. I did it on this same day, but I only did it on hold at the library and not on Goodreads. So when my hold came in, I was like, what is this? Where is this from? Who did this? It was me. It was me in my must add all of the urban fantasy and paranormal romances that sound good all at one time because I have nothing to read. So that is what we're doing today. These are not even my priorities for Love in the Night, okay? I have several paranormal romances on my Love in the Night TBR already that are much higher priority than these. This is basically a lottery to try and find out the 1 or 2 possibilities that we can add on to my current Love in the Night TBR. So seeing as there are 15 and I usually only do 10, I anticipate this taking longer than usual. Actually, I am filming this from the future, so it did take longer than usual. And also, I need to be getting rid of these. Like, I am really only looking to fill... Okay, listen. I actually did already fill that slot on Love in the Night because I didn't realize that Christine C. Jones' 3rd vampire book was out on Kindle Unlimited and I hadn't read it yet. So it's a novella, so I'll be reading that. So technically I have a full Love in the Night TBR. But I want more options, and these are supposed to be the options, and I don't need 15 of them, let me tell you. So we're really looking to be cutthroat and get rid of them. So here is me yesterday morning. All right, party peoples, I am stressed out. I feel like I have so much to do. We're going to start with Alpha by Audrey Faye. And the first line is, I shift the pack on my back and glare at the guy responsible for its weight. We're going to give that a 3. I'm going to go ahead and read the chapter and report back. Okay, so I finished the first chapter and we have an alpha, but he's not the alpha of his pack yet. His mother is, and he's young-ish. I don't know if he's a teenager or in his 20s or what, but he's young. And then he's in the woods with his friends, both of whom are older than him, and one is like an older guy, like middle-aged. And they sense a pup in trouble, so they go, and then our female main character is the mother of the pup, and the pup has Down syndrome and has shifted, and they have like an evil alpha who's trying to kill her and the pup, and she's trying to fight him off, and she has to stay in her human form and is like killing her wolf because a submissive wolf, which she is, cannot go against their alpha, and so she can only go against him in her human form, even though she obviously isn't going to be able to beat him. And so the young alpha and his guys, they, you know, get there in time and they hold off the feral evil alpha, and that is the end of the first chapter, and we get both of their POVs in that chapter, which I find very, very interesting. I have a cat.
She better have died.
She didn't die.
Phew.
But so there's that. I read the synopsis of Alpha, and he kills the alpha, so he becomes the alpha of her pack, and they're all traumatized, and he's gonna deal with it. I'll give that chapter a 3.
Mom, are you a YouTuber?
Yes, I am.
Can I be a YouTuber?
Yes, when you're bigger.
Wait.
Next, we're going to go with Cold-Blooded Alpha by Eve Bale, and the first line of this is, "My bare knees sink into soil that's still damp from last night's rain," and I will give that 2. Alright, Cold-Blooded Alpha, the first chapter is they're mating and her uncle is abusive and she is going to leave his pack because she is meeting a very powerful alpha, but this alpha killed his former alpha and his former alpha's entire family and everything, so he's viewed as, like, I don't know, a threat. And then I read the synopsis and looked at a couple of reviews. First of all, Kate C. Wells gave this 5 stars. So yes. Second of all, this is a duet. So the first book ends on a cliffhanger, and the couple goes into book 2, and then the rest of the series is standalones. Also, it seems like he is not the nicest to her because he's trying to get her to shift, and she can't shift because of the amount of abuse that she has endured at the hand of her uncle. So I gave this chapter a 4. I want to keep reading. I'm hooked a little bit. I want to see what happens. So that's exciting. Now we're going to do The Lives of Vampires and Slayers by K.M. Shia. The first line is, "I felt the spell growing behind me and dropped to a crouch so it sailed over my head," and we will give that a 3. Alright, I read the chapter and I'm giving it a 1. I have no interest in continuing. The premise itself sounds pretty interesting. So she's a vampire slayer who is on this magical task force, and she's not good at socializing, and then she's trying to pass as a human during the day because she doesn't have any family, so she would be a target for vampires. And she has a vampire neighbor who moves in and they're friends, but then at night they are adversaries and don't realize that it's the same person. But the writing didn't work for me at all whatsoever. Definitely not continuing. Next, we will do Whispers of the Dead by Adeline Winters. And the first... Are you serious, Opie? And the first line, first sentence, is, "A lone water droplet slid down the plastic glass containing the scarlet slush masquerading as a Bloody Mary." I'll give that a 2. Oh my word. Alright, first chapter of Whispers of the Dead. At first I was like, oh, I don't like this at all. This is game 1, I'm not gonna be reading this. Then she's speed dating at a bar and she meets this alpha shifter, and I got sucked in a little bit. And she said something about, don't let them see you coming, and if you have to do something, make sure you're the most powerful person in the room. And I was like, all right, you and me, we might be on the same page. Actually, she's like a witch or something similar, and she actually does like autopsies and stuff for supernaturals. And then there's going to be a bunch of murders, and the shifter, I assume the guy that she just met speed dating, and the vampire, either her best friend or someone else, are going to have to work together, and shifters and vampires hate each other. So I'm a little bit intrigued. I'm going to give that a 3. Dead to the World by Annabelle Chase. The first line is, "You're doing it wrong." And I will give that a 3, I guess. Alright, I finished the first chapter of Dead to the World. I'm giving it a 2. There's nothing really wrong with it, but I'm not interested in continuing. The writing just isn't really doing much for me. Felt a bit slow. She just bought a fixer-upper castle, basically, in Pennsylvania, and is meeting the locals and is trying to keep the ghosts from bothering her. The ones that didn't want to pass over when she came to the house. Yeah, I don't really care. Next is Tattered Huntress, and depending on how this goes will depend on whether or not I read the other one by this author. I should make it clear from the start that a boggle wouldn't be my first choice of drug dealer. I'm gonna give that a 5, actually. That's intriguing to me. BRB. Tattered Huntress, I'm giving it a 2, so it's going off of my TBR, which also means I'm not going to bother with the other one by her that's on the list, which is Waifs and Strays, the Cat Lady Chronicles. But she has a drug addiction because she's trying to suppress her magic, and this is the only thing that will work for her, even though she knows that it will kill her. And then she kills a vampire, which I guess apparently they're a little bit dumb in this world. She kills a vampire that's attacking a lady, and that's the first chapter. But then the synopsis is that she is going to run into a high elf who ruins her life and then makes her go on a treasure hunt. And it's a slow burn romance. But there's nothing really wrong with it. It's just I'm looking to take things off my TBR, and this is going off the TBR. If she happens to come into my life again, then so be it. All right, the last one I'm going to do for right this second before I move on with my life is Way of the Wolf by Lindsay Buroker. First sentence is, if something weird was going to happen in my life, it was guaranteed to occur when I was carrying a 90-pound toilet across the parking lot. I will give that a 4. Let you know when I'm done. All right, so she is a 45-year-old divorced empty nester, and she is a werewolf, but she takes a potion to suppress her wolf. And we have just met a mysterious werewolf with a metal detector. She is the apartment manager for an apartment complex. She's posing as human, right? And then in this book, her potion supplier is going to go away. Her family is going to try to reconnect after she's been out of the pack for 20 years because of some tragedy. And someone in her past is going to try and kill her. I honestly don't know if I'm going to continue this one. I guess we'll see how the others fall, but right now I got stuff to do. My library hold came in. Curses! I feel like you guys are a bit high. When I sit back, it goes a bit high. That's better, right? Should we go even lower? I don't think it's necessary. This is Opie. He's happy to be here. So it's the next morning. Last night, I took all my kids to sleepovers. Hubby and I got Chinese food, and we finished The Residence on Netflix, which is a murder mystery in the White House. And I really, really liked it. I liked it a lot. Hubby liked it okay. He didn't love the whodunit. He didn't like the answer to that. But I did. So I really, really liked it. Yeah, that was super, super fun. And it's not like the most stressful of murder mysteries or anything like that. So it's like the perfect category for me. There were parts I found funny. I was interested in the mystery. I was not stressed out of my mind, which is all I really want out of my entertainment. So we need to try and finish this up. Love in the Night officially starts for me tomorrow, but to be completely honest with you, Love in the Night starts for me when I'm done with this video, I think. I might start tonight. Who's gonna stop me? Nobody. It will be the 6th in Australia, and I am an ally. So I feel like if I choose to start in their time zone, that's just me being a good friend. Anyways, kiss the mark. by Lila. What did I write? Gwyn, maybe? Came in. This is one of the sapphic ones, so we're going to start it first. And then we'll go and continue in the order on the Kindle that we were already going. All right, the first line is, Mayfair is a strange little town and most people think we're in a cult. Three or four. What are we going with? I'll go with 4. I'm going to read the first chapter. I'm going to drink my coffee and I will check back in with you. All right, so she is a fairy bounty hunter in a small town, and she is going to kind of stumble into a vampire conspiracy thing, and she is going to have a romance with a vampire who is pretty high up, and this is the first in a trilogy, and I'm intrigued, so I'm going to give that first chapter a solid 4. I would like to continue this as of right now, and yeah, if you're looking for a sapphic urban fantasy, this might be a good option for you. But it also might not be, because often I'm wrong about these first chapters. Let me tell you how often I DNF after this. Pretty often. It's frequent. Alright, so next is Mine by Nissan. And it's set in summer 2020. At least the first chapter is. The cat just yoinked the carpet. What was my purpose? Alright. That's a 1. That does absolutely nothing for me. But we're gonna read the chapter and find out. Alright, that first chapter I'm gonna give a 3, but I am interested in continuing it. So this first chapter, we basically get told her story, and it's a little bit rough, okay? So all of this I would consider content warnings. But she grew up in foster care. A boy came to foster care and he was her best friend, and he ended up convincing his aunt to foster them both, so they got out of the group home. He was constantly asking her to be his girlfriend while sleeping with other girls, and she had absolutely no interest in dating him whatsoever. And then when she was 18, she had her apartment ready to go and everything, and she was going to be able to move into it before that aunt was going to kick her out. And she went on a date with a guy, and he ruined everything. He was going to have his aunt kick her out that day in November. He had called the apartment and said she wasn't interested anymore. Just all this, so she had to be his girlfriend in order to have a place to live. He's like very controlling, but he helped her start a bookstore, which is almost all Black books, which is cool. So there's like one thing, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense with the rest of it. And she's going to meet her shifter mate. She already knows shifters exist. She's going to meet her shifter mate, and she's going to try and run away from him. She's not interested in this guy that says she's his mate. But that hasn't happened yet. So the whole first chapter is basically talking about how much she despises this guy and how she's trapped with him, but she is not sleeping with him. First chapter, not super what I'm interested in. Obviously, it's only the beginning of the story, and I am interested to see it continue. Next, we are going to go for Devoted to the Dragon by Serena Song. And this, I think, has quite a few content warnings, but this is a prologue. Below me, Eric's howl rings out from the foothills. Give that a 2 for variety's sake. BRB. Alright, so the first chapter is, well, I read the prologue, not the first chapter, but her entire village is slain and betrayed by one of her sister's mates, including her childhood best friend who is going to become one of her mates. They all die. They try to kill her and take her heart, but she escapes. And that is where a lot of her mistrust comes from. So I'm going to give that a 3 as well. I don't always love when, you know, it's mates and they're very resistant to having mates. Like, I like when the mate thing is like, yay, mates. But I'm interested in it. This one I think is very kinky, steamy. She's now the last Omega dragon shifter, and the wolves are on the edge of extinction, and it's been centuries, and there's rejected mates and unrequited love. There's my pets. Next, I'm going to do Fated to the Wolf Prince by April L. Moon. Now this one, Izzy also did in her paranormal romance try chapter. I had already added it. Yes, obviously, since it's all from this one day. It was already on my TBR. I don't really remember exactly what she said about it. I do remember that she liked it enough and wanted to continue it. And actually, I think it was one of her top contenders. The first line is, "My lab was my safe space." 1 star. Science again? We're supposed to be in paranormal. Why are we sciencing things? It's fine. If you are a scientist, I do love you. Okay, let's not take all this as despising real scientists. If you watched my DNF wrap up, that is actually going live here in 20 minutes while I'm filming this, you already know this rant. All right, another 3 star. The cat is back for your viewing pleasure. What are you doing, kitty? All right, so the alpha over all of the shifters has declared that all of the unmade wolves have to get together, and her friend is ranting that it is a violation of their 21st century rights. And apparently Omegas aren't allowed to exist anymore, but she is a Psi, which is like very weak and 1 step up from Omega. Obviously, she ends up being mated to the prince. Oh. All right, we are making progress though. We're almost done here. Finally, this is taken. I knew that this was going to take more than 1 day, but I'm over it. Next is Alpha Scorned by Karen Tomlinson. And this first line is, "I bounced Devin on my knee, laughing as his chubby hand wiped cake all over my light blue shirt." I'll give that a 2, like all the others. Here we go. Okay, so I would give that 4 or 5, probably a 4, since I'm not doing 5s today apparently. She rejected him, and he, you know, desperately wants her, but she's rejected him, and she's rejected him specifically because of a secret that would ruin his life and her son's life and her life, but she's not willing to let it ruin their lives, so she's rejected him. But this is clearly a spin-off series. So this is Shadow Sentinels World, and then there's another Shadow Sentinels series. So I'm actually going to put the first book in that series on my TBR and take this one off. So that one, her mate was killed, and she's been hunting the people who betrayed them, and she gets thrown in prison, and the king of the shifters in prison is going to have a romance with her. So I'm gonna switch to that one and take this one off for that reason. But you could definitely read this without reading that, and I liked the writing, so really, you know, whichever one is your preference. Next, we're almost done here. The Dalwick Demon by Ashley Bennett. The first line is, "Hot hatred burned inside of me as I watched Jeremiah sleep in bed beside me." I'm gonna give that a 4. So this is historical. I'll give it a 3. She's a prostitute, and the priest has decided that she is going to be the sacrifice for the demon because of witchcraft, prostitution, and theft. And the demon is obviously going to be very nice to her. And lastly, thank God, I have Lady Venom Takes a Mistress by Kat Blackthorne. This is another historical paranormal, but this one is sapphic. It's another one where we're reading the prologue, and the first line is, "The stories aren't true." Three. We're almost done. All right, the prologue was like a page, so an easy win. Basically, we have a Medusa in a house in the woods, right? And she has a maze, and this guy was like, I'll prove that there's nothing wrong, and he died. I'll give this a 4 too. What's going to happen is you have a young noble woman, and she is going to be forced to marry a guy, and he's promised to break her, and she decides on her wedding day, I believe, to run into the woods instead. She ends up at the maze, and Lady Venom makes her mistress. Then they have sweet, sweet love. That's all of them. We did 15 books. I am going to reevaluate. I'm going to try and figure out what is leaving, what is staying, and specifically what's staying for Love in the Night possibilities. And then I will come back to you. I'm so glad to be done. From the 14 that I actually read, because I didn't read that second one by the same author, this is what I have as priority TBR maybes. They're very loose maybes. Some will fall into yes and some will fall into no, to be clear. And the no's. So I did not at all narrow this down as much as I would have liked. So if I were making a Love in the Night TBR just from the books that I did in this try chapter, this would be on my Love in the Night TBR, okay? However, I already have a Love in the Night TBR. So I restructured my Love in the Night TBR for my top priority favorite authors, the paranormal romances that have been on my TBR the longest, basically since the last round of Love in the Night. And then some from this try chapter and recent finds. So this is what my TBR is looking like right this second. However, as you all know, I'm going to DNF some of these. It just always remains to be seen which ones I'm going to DNF. My favorite authors are safe, but nothing else is safe. We know this. So I also would like to really prioritize some shorty patorties. So these are the 9 shortest paranormal romances on my TBR. If you are also looking for inspiration for the readathon, these are my short ones. These I want to read at least half of. If everything's going well, that's what's going to happen. So this is what I'm looking like. Obviously, when you are seeing this, it is already Tuesday. So we are already a couple of days into the readathon. Let me know if you've read anything good already, if you have any paranormal romances that you are really excited about that you just read or are excited to read. If you're adding any of these onto your TBR, let me know. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.